And welcome everyone to another Smart Money Circle episode. I'm Adam Sarhan. With me today is Dr. Shalabh Gupta, who's the founder, chairman, and CEO of Unicycive Therapeutics. Ticker symbol is UNCY. Dr. Gupta, thank you so much for taking the time and welcome to the Smart Money Circle.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So I always like to begin, Dr. Gupta, can you please tell us your story and how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. Adam, I'm a physician, trained, practiced. I did my medical training in New York. I did my internship, residency, fellowship. I'm board certified, was a faculty and attending physician at NYU Hospital and NYU School of Medicine. I also have a finance degree from NYU, graduate degree in finance and management. I started my career this is my academic background. I started my career in biotech roughly 2 decades ago. First role that I had a chance to play was to work with a biotechnology company as a medical director while I was in my training. I went to FDA for their initial applications called IND application. So I had a chance to work with the biopharma companies for the last 2 decades. Without boring you with all the details, very quick highlights are, so I worked with this company while I was in my training. That company became a company called Synergiva that got acquired by Alexion for $9 billion in 2015. I was their first medical director. After finishing my training during the weekdays, which is Monday through Fridays, I worked as an analyst on Wall Street covering biopharma stocks. I worked for a bank covering small mid-cap biotech, and then worked for another bank covering large-cap pharmaceutical stocks. Weekend and holidays that my friends didn't want to cover, I continued to practice medicine as an attending physician and a faculty at NYU. I took care of patients after acute cardiac surgery. I left New York, joined Genentech on the West Coast, moved to California. I worked for Genentech in corporate strategy group. And from there on, I got the inspiration to start my company. And I founded two companies prior to starting and founding Unicycive. I started Unicycive in real world fashion 2018 by acquiring two different drugs from two different companies. Went to FDA, changed the regulatory pathway to make it expedited approval pathway, took the company public in 2021. And in 2025, June this year, we have a PDUFA date, which is a approval date from the FDA for getting our first drug to the market. So super excited to be here. Thank you for hosting me.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I love the background. I love when CEOs also have finance backgrounds. So I'm really interested to hear where this goes and unfolds. But let's talk about your company. Please tell us about your company and some of your competitive advantages.
Adam, I am not a nephrology doctor or kidney doctor. People always assume that my first company was focused on oncology, cancer treatment. Second was focused on infectious diseases, so very different. What I think about when I started the company, what I think about in a therapeutic area, a place where a company with a small size focus can really make a difference. So kidney diseases is one of those areas that innovation has not happened at the same pace as it happened in many other therapeutic areas like cancer, for example. I wanted to build something where we could, with a small company, small team, and short duration and money spent, we could make the drug and get it to market. So that's where the focus came on building a company with having a portfolio of products. My prior background I've already given you. So with that in mind, that I didn't have a particular emotional interest. The goal was to find a product that could solve the problem for patients. And a lead drug is a drug that I acquired from another public company. At the time, it was a company called Spectrum Pharmaceuticals. They had to spend millions and millions of dollars and probably a decade in developing the drug and finish phase one clinical trial. The drug came from a car battery company originally, and which is surprising because car battery companies typically are not known to develop biotech products, and that was the way it happened. But the context was very simple, which if I explain to you, it will all make sense. The big unmet need for a lead drug is that currently patients who are on dialysis, who have high phosphate, have to take 12 to 15 pills per day. And our drug can solve that problem by three small pills that they can take with each meal. So there are three types of problem, and I'll talk about what's the problem where you're solving, and then tell you the problem statement, the market opportunity, and that can be a way to just think about it. The problems are that patients who are on dialysis, they have to take something to manage their phosphate. And you may say, Adam, Shalabh, I've never heard about phosphate. People talk about salt, don't eat too much salt. What does a phosphate has to do with anything? I'll come back to it. But imagine for a second that somebody has to manage their phosphate because patients who are on dialysis, as you know, dialysis is the last stage of kidney, deterioration of kidney function. Patients who are on dialysis, they need something to manage their phosphate, and they need something that will be managing their phosphate um, on top of dialysis treatment. So if they have a treatment for the hyperphosphatemia, 80% of patients who are on dialysis need something to manage their phosphate. The existing treatment have three basic problems. Large number of pills that we talk about 12, 15 pills. There are other solutions that exist, which are called large size pills that patients can take. So there is large size pills, and the size may be one problem, but the other issue is that patients have to chew those large size pills. So these are three problems that patients have to encounter: large number of pills or large size pills that they have to chew. Our solution offers that advantage to the patient by giving them one pill with each meal, so three pills per day that they can swallow, and the size of these pills is the size of a baby aspirin. And this market opportunity, the sales of existing drugs for this category of diseases has been over $1 billion in the US and continues to grow. So that's the basic premise of the company, what we are working on, what's the treatment opportunity is. And then we have a second drug, we can talk about that in a minute.
Sure. And then let's talk about the dialysis because that's really important. So OLC is the drug, is that correct?
Oxylanthanum carbonate, short form OLC, is the name of the drug. Thank you
Yeah, I
for
didn't want to try to pronounce it because I knew that I wouldn't be able to do that, but
it's
thank you for.
okay.
So
Yeah.
look, you have a drug that you're developing now that's going to help with dialysis. Instead of having multiple pills, just again to simplify it for people watching, you'll have one pill, or is it an injection, or how does that work? And then
One
exactly.
tablet with each meal. And
Okay,
yeah. The meal is where the can I just tell the problem why we worry about the phosphate?
please, by all means.
People
Yeah,
people who are on dialysis, they can't make urine. They go to dialysis three times a day. We are talking about patients who are in hemodialysis. So if you drove around before the interview, we were talking about you living in Florida. If you drive around any town, Adam, what you find there are dialysis clinics. These dialysis clinics or dialysis centers are where patients go for hemodialysis. They have a catheter attached to their arm, and they go through three times a week hemodialysis, and where their blood is filtered through the dialysis machine. Dialysis machine takes care of a lot of problem, but the phosphate is something that filters through, so it doesn't get filtered out. Patients who have high phosphate, it combines with calcium and causes patients to die from atherosclerosis. In other
right.
words, think about high phosphate is as bad as having, as an example, just to make a point, is like somebody eating a steak for breakfast, a steak for lunch, a steak for dinner.
Oh
Imagine
boy.
all the damage that does to your
Right.
arteries is how hyperphosphatemia causes patients to develop atherosclerosis. And it has been shown that if they have a 1 milligram per deciliter increase in serum phosphate, they die from cardiovascular risk increase at 10 to 15%. That's the number one problem. Second problem is that this phosphate combines with calcium and gets deposited in the soft tissue. So there are examples, case studies where you see patients having a lump of bone coming out of their arm. It's very painful, it's disfiguring, and it's a huge complication. More importantly, these patients have a very high risk of mortality. So with serum phosphate being high, they end up in having a death from a heart attack, and the cardiovascular problem, 10 to 15%, 15 to 20% as the serum phosphate levels go up. And there
Excellent.
are 6 approved drugs on the market. So it's not something where there's nothing approved ever. And with 6 approved drugs, currently, over the last decade plus, 75% of patients do not have adequate phosphate control. So you see, if I summarize all that I said, Big market opportunity, over $1.25 billion sales in the US, six approved drugs, yet 75% of patients do not have the target serum phosphate level. And it is not something so controversial that only a few doctors know how to do it and the others don't really care. Physicians want to solve the problem, but the problem hasn't been solved. So that's a landscape, if you will.
So if I understand, again, I'm not a physician or a doctor here, but the OLC acts like a sponge where it absorbs that phosphate. Is that a good way of summarizing it?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Well
And
said.
then,
Yeah.
thank you. And then right now, there's no other way to do that. So people that have dialysis and kidney issues, they're taking all these different drugs, hoping that they can do it, but they're still not addressing the elephant in the room, which is that phosphate. And that this OLC controls it. Is that a another way of
I
explaining it?
want to clarify that part. The first part is correct. The OLC is like a binder. There are six approved drugs, Adam. The problem with these drugs are what we call the three Ps. So it's not that there are not other treatments available, Adam. The problem is that many of these drugs are not very potent. So what you end up in doing, in order to overcome the potency, you give large number of pills. So if a patient takes 18 pills, 15 pills a day, they will be able to manage the phosphate. The problem is that these are not the patients who are walking around. The only problem they have is the hypophosphatemia. To give you an example, on an average, these patients are taking 20 to 30 pills per day, not for a week, not for a month, for the rest of their life. If they have to take 15 pills for something that doesn't cause chest pain, they're not going to take it. So the existing treatments are there, but they're not very potent. So that's number one problem. So large number of pills, or they're given in a form that they don't like to take it. If I ask you to take a very, very not good tasting pill after every meal you have, I say, Adam, don't worry about it. I'll give you three pills. You take these three giant pills. So first of all, looking at the size of the pill, a lot of people just feel disheartened, but that's not bad enough. I say, Adam, don't worry about it. Just keep chewing it. Keep chewing it. The first time you chew, Adam, after a little bit of time, you say, I don't want to do it. And patients don't like chewing the pill because they have metal in them. So if
Right.
I put a strawberry flavor in a metal tablet, it still tastes like metal with strawberry in the background. If I ask you to chew large size M&M for every time after meal, after some time you may enjoy M&M for a week or so. After some time you say, I don't like to take it. So
Right.
the problem is that compliance becomes an issue. They don't take the pills. So it's not that there are no solution. The solution that exists in the market, they do not make it possible or easy for patients to take it. And then
Understood.
there are side effect profile and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of challenges. So it is solves a problem by giving a solution in a form that patients can take it.
Thank you for clarifying. That's a really excellent point. And I've heard this before from other biotech CEOs where the patient compliance is a big issue as well. So anything that you wanted to add before we move on to my next question with respect to what you do, your
Yeah,
competitive advantages, the
yeah.
company? Go ahead. Yep.
I think the part is that Adam, I've talked to a lot of people that sometimes companies and management create a solution. So it's like having a hammer and looking for a nail. We didn't create the solution. This was something that people had figured this out. And, as you know, we took the company public during COVID time. So I had time to talk to a lot of investors. If you just ask the physicians this question, what is the number one problem that you have for your patients who are on dialysis? The number one unaided question, the answer is unaided, meaning not multiple choice question. 60% of US physician nephrologists said pill burden is the number one problem. So that's number one thing. And then some part I've said to you is intuitively it will make sense that, hey, it's not a rocket science to ask a patient to take 15 pills or take large size pill they to chew. But patients have continuously shown that if there was a better form of treatment, they will take it. And the third is that we did a lot of work in developing this drug. The background of the drug is coming from a nanoparticle technology that came from a car battery company. But the end result is that you have these small pills. They're the size of baby aspirin. The patient can just take it and solve the problem. So that is how the solution got created. In the beginning, it was it's something that people say, well, that's it. We are in biotechnology, especially people are always looking for the next I call it most cool technology, gene
Right.
therapy, cell therapy. It is something which is intuitive. It solves the problem, very big market opportunity, huge competitive advantage. So it takes a little bit of time for someone to understand what is this company solving the problem and how big the market opportunity is.
Got it. No, that makes perfect sense. Okay, thank you for that. Next question for you. Let's shift the conversation to some of my favorite part of the show, which is timeless advice. Let's talk about risk management. You've come from a great background. What are some mistakes you see people make with respect to risk management, and how do you learn from it or avoid it?
Absolutely. I think a job of an entrepreneur is not to take risk. I really think it's a fallacy. If you start a company, you are already in a very risky position. The job of an entrepreneur is to figure out how to minimize risk. I didn't say no risk because people say no risk, no reward. But the question is that how can you do a few things that if you were to fail, you fail fast, you fail early, and you change your course. So I'll give you a very specific example in this current company that I'm running for. For example, we went to FDA very early on after I acquired the drug to have an alignment with the agency, what experiments we could do to show you the agency, which is in the interest that they want to get the new products in the market so that it will get to the market in a more abbreviated pathway, which biotech people say 505(b)(2) pathway. But think about it is that how can we run experiment that will get us to the finish line faster? So that's number one. Number two is that not asking your best friend and so, because biotech companies or people in our industry are filled with examples of people who have done it, been there, done that before. But no, the fact is that you talk to the regulators who are in the process of making that decision and align with them. That's number two. Then the question about running those experiments, running them efficiently, quickly as you can. So that's a part about running clinical trials. And the part is that, Adam, that speed and focus is on your side as an entrepreneur. A lot of things are not on your side. You don't have a huge amount of resources, which comes with a lot of money, a lot of time. But what is your advantage is agility. If somebody shows you a path, you can get there faster than anybody else. So having that agility, resilience, right? You encounter challenges. You don't say this is it. This is an unsurmountable challenge. You ask yourself, you tell your team, hey, this is a problem people have faced before. How can we overcome that? Agility, resilience, and surrounding yourself with the people really building a core team. Because nobody, you may have heard my background. You say, well, Shalabh, that's your great background. But Adam, constantly at every stage of company, we continue to surround ourselves with the people who bring other skill set that I may not have, my current team may not have. So it's about building a team. And the other part is that continuously remain very focused only a few priorities. I think one of the biggest challenge, Adam, that I've seen consistently when you talk to a CEO, when you talk to management and founding team members, they tell you the 10 different ideas they're pursuing it. And I think that's a recipe for disaster because even if you have infinite amount of money, which obviously nobody has it, the biggest constraint that company has is a time, focus, and energy. You can have, hundreds of millions of dollars in funding, but you cannot focus on 10 different things. Being able to narrow down your focus and say, these are the only three things we'll do for this month, this quarter, and next 6 months is something that requires a huge amount of discipline in the company. Even today, after raising the money we have raised, I always, every time we have a team meeting, all hands meeting, I have three priorities. Those are three, one, two, and three. I say, if you can't remember, then I have not done my job. Every single person in the company knows there are only three priorities for the company. You may have a way to impact those three priorities, but we don't have five priorities. And I really mean it. You cannot have 10 priorities. So the challenge that entrepreneurs face in the beginning of their career that they have too many priorities. And as they gain experience, then you realize of the 50 priorities that you may have, which are the three that really matter. in the beginning, you don't know what are the three priorities that really matter. And I don't mean in a bad way. It's just, it takes a little bit of experience and wisdom. And hopefully you have people around you who can help you. So prioritizing your focus and then executing a plan. And the third thing is being flexible. If you encounter challenges, you should be willing to change your thesis and say, maybe this is a better way to get there. So
So,
that is what helps a company succeed versus many that fail. Sorry, that was it.
no, I absolutely love it. So I was going to ask you, what are those three priorities, if you don't mind sharing, or is that something that's proprietary you don't want to share?
No, 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 no. We say very publicly. I mean, it's something which you can appreciate. Our first priority is to get the drug approved and continue to work with regulators throughout the world. We have a drug in development in the US, but we also have partnerships in other countries. So approval. And once you get the drug approval, you say, well, how could that be priority? Because you continue to expand, right? We are working on a supply chain so we can grow the organization. Number two is the commercialization of the drug, approval of the lead drug. Second is commercialization of the drug. And third one is anything else we do on the pipeline drug. We have a second drug in the development. Those are the three priorities, and they're different than what it was last year. But those are the three priorities because if we focus on commercialization of the drug, it requires the entire company to focus how can we commercialize the drug. And the third part is the pipeline. We have a second drug, which I understand that is not in the focus today, but we are not a one product company. We have two drugs in development. So the idea is those are the three priorities. And the reason I say this to you, Adam, because I have built two companies prior to this. And today I'm in a fortunate position where on a pro bono basis, I advise entrepreneurs from Stanford, UCSF, and many other institutions. But in particular, working with the Stanford entrepreneurs, those some of them are not even working in biotech, and they're working in healthcare IT. They're working using AI as a tool to solve healthcare problems or medical device companies. This part is universal. It is not relevant only for biotechnology company prioritization, uh, building a team, and remaining very core, very intensely focused on the priorities, and then saying no to all other things. Because once you know there are only a few things you can do, is you conserve your time and energy. Because even if money was there, rapidly available, the time and energy is not there, and focus, right? The true advantage of startup has agility. But if you're focused on 20 different things, you can't develop 20 different things at the same time.
Absolutely love it. It's brilliant. Absolutely love it. All right, thank you for that clarification. Next question for you. What are some timeless lessons you've learned along the way that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, so there are many of those examples, but let's just say we talk about building a company or developing a product. I think, as a CEO, there are three things I'm constantly focused on. One is the product development, right? Number two is telling the story. I'm not only telling them a story for my investors, but I want to attract the very best people I can have in my team. A company is not a question about the founder and CEO or the person who started the company. Company is more than a person. It's about a team. It takes a village to build a product. It takes a bigger village to launch a product. So whatever we did so far is good. But I tell people, don't keep reminding yourself of your history and your glory. Focus on what we need to do ahead. So it's building a team, telling your story, and continuously adding the right set of a skill set for people to continue to advance the product. So that's a current focus. So that's something which hopefully helps other people. Second part is that I think people have talked a lot about it, but if you ask me the top five, it definitely ranks among the top five. I don't know is it number two or number three. It's a growth mindset. The growth mindset says that I may not be able to do it today, but with little focus, little bit help, little bit outside box thinking, we can achieve that goal. Whether you're developing a drug or you're developing a product, you think about commercialization, everything is challenging, right? For us, as an example, Adam, we are launching the drug in the US market as a lone standalone company. And we are fortunate that our investors believed in us so much with the product market opportunity that we have a $100 million in potential warrant tranches to launch the drug. Even so, Even so, we always ask ourselves, who are primary customers? Identify those customers. We want to know who these physicians are, who are the primary prescribers. To narrow it down further, for your, just as an example, 2,100 physicians in the United States prescribe 50% of these binders that constitute $1.25 billion in sales.
Oh, wow.
2,100 doctors.
Wow.
I'm not happy with that either. I said, narrow it down further. We got to 200, then we got to 400. My goal, my team's goal is to talk to those top prescribers before the drug is ever in the market. They should know about what the product can do. You can create the world's best product, but if no one prescribes it, it's not going to solve the problem.
Right.
So that is the intensity of focus. We have talked to when I built the company before I took the company public, I've talked personally. I'm not a kidney doctor, I'm not a nephrologist, but I've talked to at least 400 to 500 doctors. But now with the team around me, we want to talk to those 2,100 physicians. We want to talk to 20% of those physicians as an example. That would be 400 doctors. So by being able to zeroing in, who are the prescribers? What are their mindset? And the commonest feedback we get from physician is no brainer. If the drug is in my office setting today, I'll prescribe it. And we want to make that awareness be known. And it's not about sales and marketing, but being able to create a value proposition so that physicians understand how to prescribe it. And I believe in so much so about being able to focus that Adam, I put in a corporate deck, as in a public corporate deck. We have a US map that shows where are these dialysis clinics, dialysis physicians. So it shows you a US map, and you'll find certain parts of the country there are more patients who are on dialysis than others. So in other words, by hiring a small team of Salesforce, we can deploy that. We can make the difference. And this ability to narrowing it down so that you are not just saying yourself something, what I call it, the emotional part. Oh, no, we can do it. We are resilient. We are the great team. No, actually having a plan and then executing the plan and being able to measure yourself against that execution plan. And that's just something that takes discipline. It requires focus. And it also requires saying no to a lot of other things. So we say it very publicly that there are a lot of things people want us to do, but we don't do it. And it means that sometimes saying that no, we are not going to present our papers in that conference because we are going to remain focused on these few conferences. Sometimes it's about, deploying our resources in certain places. So the focus and the question about resilience, we talked about it, question about getting there faster and outside the box thinking. A lot of people say that our team thinks outside the box. We all think that is how we think, unless and until now you're given a challenge and now you have to solve it. That's when the creativity comes in. That's where you need to surround yourself with good people, good teams, mentors, advisors. And as I've grown to build the company further, one of the things that I found that, of course, we have great investors, but think about your investors as your thought partners. Not just taking their money and being grateful for their investment, but also thinking how would they like you to think about it? Because starts to give you a perspective, and that is a different vantage point. I wrote recently an article on LinkedIn, which is that the startups have a huge advantage, but they also have a disadvantage. I gave an example of a founder's blinders, and the idea is that if you live in New York City or if you ever go to New York City, they have these horses and carriages, so where horses have these blinders put on there so they don't get distracted by the bikers, the runners, or other people, and they can go on a path. That's how I think about a startup. If you're a startup founder, you will have these blinders on. And it's okay because that's what helps you to focus. But it's also important to have mentors, collaborators who will let you see what is happening outside the world, right? And
Yeah.
and keep you honest. Because if you're not focused, if you get distracted, just like that horse, you'll be all over the place. So you need to be focused. But the question is that how do you have people who continue to challenge you, who continue to help you? And they can be mentor, they could be advisor, they could be people who are in the industry who are not working with you day to day. It could be investors, and it could be all of them. As you build the company, higher and higher level, you have to keep your eyes and ears open because if you don't see the world around you, how it is changing, you can't really adapt to it. It could be a reimbursement environment, it could be the government agencies changing regulations and how they reimburse your product. All of that requires an astute awareness. And awareness cannot come because you are so focused in doing what you do. It comes by being open to the idea that you may know a lot about few things, but there are things that you may need to be aware of it and ask for help.
No, I love that. So the other side would be timeless mistakes. I'm assuming they'd be some of the opposite of what you just said. In other words, not being focused, not being disciplined, etc. Anything else you want to add to the mistakes before I ask you the next question?
It is very important. The mistakes, as you said, there are, I think, Adam, one of the challenges that companies have had in the past, and I've seen it happen too. So my dear friends have mentioned I have a lot of people whom I talk to on a very regular basis, hiring too many people too soon, um, or hiring not enough people uh, at the right place, right time. So hiring and building a team, you could overdo it, you can underdo it. And we, as a company, are launching a product. I call it right-sizing the company. A right-sizing company means that you are very focused whom we want to hire, despite the money you have. I've had investors sometimes they will say jokingly, Shalabh, we've given you money, now you can hire. I said, no, no, I don't have a problem in hiring. It's not that we don't want to hire. We want to hire the right people. Because Adam, every person whom you hire, he or she brings something to the team. As an example, when we were 20 people company, one person, one employee is 5% of our workforce. I do not want to have anybody who is not pulling their weight. I want to hire the very best, and it takes time, it takes efforts, it takes a thoughtful process. So hiring is the one example, especially because sometimes companies can have a lot of money, a lot of resources. So then the mindset is that let me hire very quickly. And only point I don't want to belabor that point. The one thing I will say, I have to remind myself and my investors that the growth of the company, the metric of growth is not how many people we hire. That could be one way to you think about growth. Growth is that how much value we can create. Slight difference, but that then it starts to give the fact that it's not a matter of pride to say we grew a 5 people company to a 50 people company, 10x growth. So I know it seems a very focused part, but the reason I say because ultimately companies are based on people. If you build the right team, that means your resources are being spent properly. And it's not just the hiring is a question of money. We thank God we have resources not to worry about hiring, but it's also being focused on growing the team properly.
Yeah, I love what you said about creating value. It doesn't matter about the quote unquote growth of team members if they're not, at the end of the day, if the company's not adding massive value, that's not worth anything. That's a very, very, very simple but very powerful distinction. I love that. And most people miss it. So thank you for sharing that. I guess next question for you. Let's talk about leadership. You're a leader, you've been around several companies. What makes a great leader? And what are some lessons you want to share about leadership with the audience?
Yeah, I think Adam, people always ask this question about leadership. Let me say it differently. Before you lead anyone else, you lead yourself. And people say, well, what do you mean leadership? How do you mean? I tell my every person in my team, I said, you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you're leading yourself. You have to be willing to do things that you think are important, and they may not necessarily be the most easiest thing to do. So to me, leadership means authenticity. That's number one. Number two is that I want to motivate people, but I don't want to force, I don't want to, and I know that Silicon Valley, especially people talk about how leaders have Asperger's syndrome, they don't really care. I want to challenge people, but I want to do it in a way that inspires them. Inspiring people is hard. Forcing people by fear or even from a monetary reimbursement or growth or bonuses or your promotion are easy to do. Inspiring people means that you meet them where they are and sit down with them and challenge the thinking. I get, and I give you an example. We get, we have to run clinical trials, and sometimes running a trial, we were asked to run a trial. Most recent trial was not one we had planned for. So these are roadblocks we all encounter. Sometimes people get very dismayed and they say, well, we were not expecting this. And I say to people in a gentle way, Adam, that we are not so uniquely gifted that we are the only one who face the problem. I said, I know how it feels, but it's not personal. Let's not wallow in our sorrows about the problem. Let's think about the solution. And let's just say they said this much money, this much time to run the trial. I say two things. Number one, whatever you said, you can leave it. You can forget about it. We are not that company. We're gonna have to do it in a half the time, half the money, and faster in a way that anybody had thought about it. So that's number one is to changing the mindset. And number two, to tell them always that I'm not gonna tell you do it and I'll walk away, walk out of the conference room. I'm gonna sit here with you till you and I figure it out together how to do it. And I'm here to help you. What I call it, Adam, is a hand-to-hand combat. It's not that I'm sitting you in a command center and giving you the orders. I'm here with you in the trenches. And that's a wonderful thing for a small company that leaders can do. I don't want my team to feel every single person, all 25 of them today, they know they can reach out to me regardless of rank, orders, and reporting structure. And that requires you to be mentally there for them, emotionally be there for them. And I want to do it. I don't want people to feel that just because they are running a trial and they are working on a clinical trial site, they are so far away from the CEO. And sometimes I'll just pick up the phone and call them, hey, how's it going? You're in Florida, you're running this trial. How's the trial site doing? Being able to help people think and realize that you're with them, that the biggest thing a CEO, a founder, and a leader can do, because if they believe in their heart that you're with them, they feel empowered. Adam, we're fortunate. We can pay people the market rate, but that helps them to think that it has a meaning for them. People are willing to do things because it's something they believe in. There is not enough money. It doesn't matter what titles you give them, how many stock options. Because at some point, if I pay them this much money, there's always another company that can top that up. I say sometimes to my team that if the 10% increase in the pay is the only reason you have to work somewhere else, then I don't want to hire you. Because there is always somebody who can pay you more. But can somebody treat you better? Can we give you that opportunity that you feel that my gosh, and it's not in a loyalty that you be. I want to deserve that people who work with us, they feel this is something they want to believe in. So that it creates a sense of empowerment. And we just watched NFL recently. It's not how good the quarterback is. It's about how good the offense and defense both is, right? So it's about team sport and constant reminder, we are not looking for MVPs. We are looking for the winning team. And you can say all you want, but doing it on a day-to-day basis requires you to be very much present, being mentally present, being able to relate to your team. We are a team that is, at the moment, consists of people who have worked for 2 or 3 decades. When they say to me, Shalabh, this is the best job they have ever had, I don't want them to feel this way. I want everybody to feel this way. I want the team to feel empowered because, Adam, if we work together on a good cause, something that can bring a drug to market, supported by some of the best healthcare investors, I feel we are on a mission and we can really win it. Because winning is not easy, it's not guaranteed. You can't fool yourself that we're going to win. No, no, you have to work for it and you have to be diligent about it. It's like, I always say parenting and running a company is the same thing. No matter how good a job a parent is doing, every parent knows they always worry. Maybe I'm not doing enough. Maybe my child needs this, right? So it's the same thing about running a company. It's a leadership role. You're always trying to be vigilant and thoughtful. Just because your team is good today doesn't mean it will be good 6 months down the road. What can you do? How can you think about it? And I say a lot about team in the beginning of the career, in the beginning of the company. It may be just 3 people, 2 people, but you start to instill those, the principles very early on. And I like what I said to you, Adam, the first person you lead is yourself. So you lead yourself, then you lead the people 3, 5, 10, 20, and hopefully it continues to grow. And there are a lot of people we work with external collaborators. You have to be able to influence them. We're a small company. We work with some of the largest vendors, if you will. How do we become relevant for them? So, spending time with them, being able to build personal relationships with them so that we are not just a line item on their spreadsheet. We truly matter, right? And Adam, that requires you to think outside the box. That requires you to realize that if we are working with a collaborator, yes, we are a business for them, but how can we create a true partnership, understanding their pain point? Because they're also trying to, the people are really good intention, they're trying to do well, but I don't want to be a cost center. I always say to people, if I can just be something that can add value, it could be a very small thing, it could be in a form of a reference. I always say, you have done so much for our company that let me know if you want to win a business from anybody else. I'm willing to offer my, endorsement, and they can call. That means a lot to them because then they realize that Shalabh, if Unicycive, if I go to to pitch our business to a next company, Shalabh is willing to back us up because Adam, we all need help, and I don't want to be a company that was, I can't be a line item on somebody's spreadsheet. I want to be more than that. Question is, how do you do that? How can you make a difference for them? Because if we care for them, they care for us. That helps our company to proceed. We can't do it alone. It's a it's a monumental task, and we are really excited, really focused, and our drug has an opportunity to make patients' lives so much better.
I absolutely love it, and we're very much aligned with that regard as well. The personal touch is magic. So, final question for you today: what is the best piece of advice you'd like to give the audience or your 30-year-old self?
My 30-year-old self. I think, Adam, there are a lot of things I have learned over a period of time, but if it is for those audience who are in the business of starting something, I would just tell you, those folks that think about a career or life in general is learning different skill sets. I'll give you an example of a wheel. It has many, let's say, 5 or 6 spokes. Every skill set I developed, or every experience I had helps me today to be a better CEO, better leader. I used to work for UBS as an analyst covering pharmaceutical stocks. I worked for another bank covering the small mid-cap biotech stocks. I understand when I talk to my investors, I understand when I talk to the analysts on the other side, how they are thinking about the company, how they think about our value. That's one example. But I also understand when we talk to big pharma companies, I understand what a big pharma company like Pfizer thinks about a small biotech, right? So having that skill set helps you to then have a more rounded experience. That's number one. And the second part is that as a company, as we developing a product, we always think about what can we do differently than a bigger company can do. How can we bring this product to market and bring the best value we can do for our patients? And that's something, again, just requires a lot of introspection as much as work outside.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, Dr. Shalhoub, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This has been absolutely fantastic. People can follow you. I'm going to have the website on in the description. Ticker symbols UNCY, and hopefully we'll have you on again soon. This is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you so much, Adam, for having me, and thank you to the audience for listening.